Tusken Raiders, less formally referred to as the Sand People, or simply as Tuskens, were a culture of nomadic, primitive sentience indigenous to the desert planet of Tatooine. In a pretty large way, the Tusken Raiders have always been a part of Star Wars DNA from its very conception by George Lucas in 1977. But The Mandalorian, starting in Season 1 and also now in Season 2, has changed Tusken Raiders forever in the way we perceive them as Star Wars fans, and also expanded what we know about their culture. In this video, I'm going to elaborate on how the Tusken Raiders are forever changed through the live-action Star Wars and Lucasfilm show The Mandalorian. We begin with their first appearance in 1977's Star Wars. Much of what George Lucas did with the Tusken Raiders in the original Star Wars film carried over into the prequels, particularly the beginning of Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace and the middle of Episode 2 Attack of the Clones. Even though they weren't around too much in the first film, they played a small but significant role in the latter, ultimately being one of the main reasons that led to Anakin's downfall to the dark side of the Force. But if Star Wars portrayed the Tusken Raiders like The Mandalorian has, perhaps things would have turned out differently. Perhaps as fans we would have seen them very differently. Needless to say, the characters of the Tusken Raiders came out of George Lucas's crazy imagination, but it's not like he spawned everything out of thin air. Lucas, just like many other filmmakers then, and even in the contemporary times we live in, take inspiration from real-life people, cultures, and regions, and that's certainly applicable to the Tusken Raiders. It's no secret that George Lucas had a background in the social sciences, specifically in cultural anthropology. And as such, he has previously stated that the Bedouin people of North Africa and the Middle East heavily influenced the design, culture, and the history of the Tusken Raiders. But something that he did depict in the original Star Wars film is the Tusken Raiders being quite savage-like. This is something that Lucasfilm wanted to change with The Mandalorian Season 2 to add more depth to their culture and their species as a whole. One might even go so far as to say that in the original Star Wars film, Tusken Raiders were quite degraded. The Tuskens are desert dwellers and they've somehow managed to live in the desert, particularly in the Jundland wastes, for thousands of years without needing any sort of advanced technology to help them. Yet when they're introduced by Obi-Wan Kenobi in A New Hope, they're talked about like they are savages. In fact, the official Star Wars website still refers to them as quote-unquote fearsome desert savages. And in the Star Wars universe themselves, they're quickly dismissed as sand people. A New Hope went to great lengths to show viewers that travelling outside of cities and inhabited areas is dangerous, not just because of animals roaming around there, but specifically because of the sand people who could come out and get them. Lucas's depiction of the Tusken Raiders made them out to be mindless barbarians who are incapable of even targeting a Jawa sandcrawler. But that wasn't true, and unfortunately the line of thought continued beyond the original trilogy and into the Star Wars prequels. This was especially noticeable in Attack of the Clones, when Anakin returned to his home with Padme Amidala. With a more refined focus on Attack of the Clones, years after Anakin left Tatooine to be trained as a Jedi Padawan, he returned to find that his mother Shmi Skywalker had been taken by Tusken Raiders. Because everyone thought they were violent people with little to no regard of human life, Lars assumed that Shmi was dead, which was only partially true as she did die when Anakin later found her. Attack of the Clones needed a way to push Anakin towards the dark side to begin his path towards becoming a Sith Lord under Palpatine, and having his mother die right before his eyes, thus making him powerless, was apparently the best option, but in doing so, Lucas further demonized the Tusken Raiders. Everything that was teased in A New Hope finally came to fruition in Attack of the Clones. The Tusken Raiders were just as violent as people said they were, and in order to provide Anakin with some sort of catharsis in the moment, Lucas had him slaughter the entire village, possibly even the women and the children too. At least at that point, audiences could start to feel bad for them. Yes, of course they tortured and captured Shmi, but Anakin potentially killed dozens of them. It's a weird area that Lucas wanted to play in, but despite the additional screen time, not much more nuance was applied to them until now. The great thing about The Mandalorian is that it's diving deeper into established cultures and showing the average citizen's perspective on the Star Wars galaxy. There's so much that fans don't know about the New Republic era because all of it was sidelined to tell the First Order's story in the sequel trilogy. But The Mandalorian isn't beholden to that story or those characters, so it's able to elaborate on what happened across the galaxy after the second Death Star was destroyed. This is very much noticeable with Tatooine and the Tusken Raiders. Through Djarin aka Mando, the Mandalorian Season 1 subtly revealed that Tusken Raiders were people who could be bargained with. By using sign language, Mando successfully traded binoculars for passage through the Dune Sea. It was done so without any violence. The Tusken Raiders didn't attack Mando, likely because they didn't feel threatened enough by the bounty hunter. By Season 2, The Mandalorian makes the Tusken Raiders out to be a proper culture, one rooted in deep tradition. Obi-Wan once said that the Tusken Raiders always ride in single file in order to hide their numbers, and that happened in The Mandalorian Season 2 Episode 1, The Marshal. Mando even spoke the Tusken Raiders' language enough to join forces with them to take out the Krayt Dragon. Even though Cobb Vanth was ready to attack them, they invited Cobb Vanth and Mando back to them and offered them some water as well. They were willing to put aside their differences to achieve a common goal and establish a peace agreement. Furthermore, the Tusken Raiders were then shown to be an intelligent species. They had been studying the Krayt Dragon for generations and knew when it was sleeping, what it would eat, and how it would attack. The Mandalorian Season 2 went far in refining the Tusken Raiders' culture, so much so that calling them the Sand People only now seems a bit strange. By drawing on George Lucas's original vision and using the creativity that he had come up with in the first place, they elaborated upon a culture that was very misunderstood, and they were seen as dumb and kind of primitive people. And now, after The Mandalorian Season 2's first chapter, Chapter 9, we're seeing them in a completely different light. The Mandalorian Season 2 Chapter 9 also redeemed Tusken Raiders by making Boba Fett carry a Gaddafi stick right at the end. Boba Fett, being one of the most iconic characters from the original trilogy, is the perfect way to make Tusken Raiders have a much more serious and in-depth role than just being these primitive savages. So there you have it, guys. That is how The Mandalorian Season 2 has changed our outlook on the Sand People, or the Tusken Raiders. The information for today's video came from a mixture of different research sources that I found, including Wikipedia and a phenomenal article written by Mansoor Mithawala, as well as other news sources. I really hope you enjoyed my video, and if you did, please give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and also please consider becoming a patron of mine on Patreon. For just $2 or $10 a month, you can help to support this channel so I can keep coming back on here every day and giving you fresh Star Wars content. I'm Star Wars Meg, wishing you a phenomenal rest of the day, no matter where you dwell in the galaxy. Have a good one.